All right, 3, 2, 1. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On tonight's show, I have a very special guest, somebody I was fortunate enough to get in touch with, and he was one of the first people who had me on his show probably 10 years ago. It was 2010 when I first published Prophet of Evil. I think I was still printing it out in a printer in something, in a manner that was very unbook form. So I think some of those early books are out there. But his name is Vyzygoth. He, to me, is a living legend, one of the early podcasters, and he's done these great series which are available now. They're still and have been uploaded to Radio for All. It's RADIO, the number 4, ALL.net. You'd have to go in the search bar and type in Alembic. But many of the shows I've listened to, and it's really just a great honor to have him on the show again and just to kind of reconnect. So, Vyzygoth, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, William. What's up?
Not much, man. Just moving along, trucking along, I guess, back into 2020. So it's been 10 years. It's been a decade, and you've done hundreds of hours. I mean, you had so many shows, and you have about 100 hours of shows on Radio for All. And can you talk, I mean, we talked a little bit in the pre-show and sent an email, but you really started so early. You're really one of the first I don't even think they were calling it podcasting, but you were really one of the first broadcasters of the internet back in 2002. So for people who don't know, Vyzygoth, Vyzygoth, Goth, sorry. Can you talk a little bit about your background and how you got started and just go from there?
Well, the show's origins were in June 2002. And how that came about was that, I was living in Florida at the time, and the two local stations that we had, 2 AM stations, were playing pretty much the full menu of GCN, which had Alex Jones on it and John, I can't remember what his name was.
Szymanski?
Oh, no, please, not
Okay.
Greg Szymanski,
Okay,
no.
Okay.
No,
John.
it started RBN, I can't remember. But there was also the Power Hour with Joyce and Dave. There was Trudeau there. So anyway, I listened to those shows, and it's starting to resonate with me, and we can talk about why that is. But in time, I started getting in touch with the people that were at the AM stations, and one of them, Harry Spencer, came to where I was working at St. Leo's University. There was an opening that occurred there, and I knew Harry enough that I said to him, hey, you might want to look into this, and he did. So we were working together at St. Leo University, and that was probably March '02. And since he was at GCN and he heard all the Patriot stuff, and because he knew where I was at, or getting there anyway, he chose to do the show, and he named it Beyond the Grassy Knoll. Right. And we did half-hour shows that were on pirate radio locally in Dade City, and then also went up on Radio for All. And we did that for a while, and then eventually I took the show to those 2 AM stations from which he had already left, and I did a weekly 2-hour show, and I did that for a number of years. And then the show, the stations got sold. It got a little weird, as things usually do when there's a change of ownership. And eventually I went off to doing podcasting, probably from '06 onward. And you're right, in the beginning, they didn't call it podcasting, and that's what we were doing. And so that's how it all started. And
you had so many groundbreaking shows and people. And and they're on YouTube. I'm looking at them now. You've had some people have re-uploaded many of your old shows from before 2010 when I was on. But sorry.
No, what I was going to say is that unfortunately, the shows that were done at the AM station, some of them were really powerful, and they have not been saved. And that's why I kind of hesitated, because a lot of good stuff that was on in those years when we were at WDCF and WZHR. Didn't get there, but I mean, it was things like, the really emotional stuff. And at that time, we streamed also. That was a great boon for everyone. I mean, if you're in a station that only has like about, 10,000 people listening, potentially, I mean, the stream gives you worldwide coverage. And we had people on that were talking about the excesses of Child Protective Services. There were a few things. And also, I don't know if people remember this at all, but Terry Schiavo was a woman in Florida who was I don't want to say somewhat catatonic, but she was breathing. Let's put it that way.
She
And there
was
was
in a
a
vegetative state.
yes, thank you very much. But by the way, do you remember that episode in
Vaguely, yeah.
Florida?
I didn't follow it in great detail, but I recall the family wanted to pull the life support, correct?
No, the family. Well, it gets really interesting. No, the family wanted to preserve her, but her husband wanted to pull the plug, and therein lies the rub, if you know what I'm trying to say, because she had an event that kind of put her into the final state she was in. But the point was is that I had on her brother and her lawyer, Pat Anderson, and there was some really compelling shows in those days. And I'm sorry they didn't make it, but that was pretty good radio. I mean, I'm not trying to reduce the people that were subjects of this to be, you know, centers of some kind of like popularity thing, but they were pretty heavy at that time. And I mean, even myself, sometimes I was just shaken after it was over with because you're dealing with people who were right in the midst of that, and that was a really corruption-centered event that finally took Terry's life. But anyway, be that as it may. So anyway, the AM shows, I'm sorry I didn't get up there, but we had callers, and it was the high time. But, you know, what are you going to do? And when things change and the ownership isn't like really necessarily caring about what you do or even in back of it, we had to go. So, but anyway, that was a good time. And it was sometime before even you and I ever got together, because that was like 4 years before we ever talked.
Right.
But by that time, I had already gone down to podcasting. And unfortunately, I have to say, I mean, there were so many mountebanks, phonies in the 9/11 movement and other places in the Patriot movement that, you know, I spent a lot of time banging heads with people because I know that they were lying. And, you know, people have favorites like Alex Jones and such, you know, they worship them. And so if they go bad, they still go with them because, well, after all, it's, you know, it's Alex or whatever. And that didn't really go well for me. In fact, if you look in the comments section of the shows that are up there on YouTube, you'll find that they've been discontinued or disabled or whatever.
Well, it hasn't changed much. I mean, there still are attention seekers and scoundrels and people manipulating the public is still going on to this day. There's a lot of hoaxes and, you know, what they call LARPers now. I don't know if you've heard that term, but some of these people are clearly putting on a fake persona and just playing it out online like it's a big joke. And really, and actually getting a lot of people to follow them too. So I don't know if that was similar to what you experienced over 10 years ago.
William, absolutely. In fact, what I did was the year after I got off the AM stations, I did a weekly show on Live 365. And I did it for a year. And I kind of lost my vision because in the beginning, what I really wanted to do was find out what the world is really like and what our country's really like. I mean, is this all a lie? And I went off on that tact, but then I got sidetracked and kind of started doing, like what you might be doing or whatever. Not that that's bad, but it wasn't what I was going for, because as I started to interview more and more people, I realized that they didn't know any more than I did, and that wasn't getting me any closer. And then in the final years, that's where I went, because it is a fact of life. It'll be the way it's always been, that the masses will always go for the easy way out. They'll follow anybody. They don't want to commit. And that really is the basis of why things don't change, because through millennia, it's always been the same.
Yes.
Control the masses, and the government or the power that be at that wherever that should be has no problem at all. It will never be shaken from where it's at.
Right. It'll self-sustain itself forever, right? Generally, if they can mind control them or control the outflow of information.
And of course, we've seen it no worse or greater, however you want to talk about it, than it is today. I mean, with 24/7 everything, with ubiquitous supposedly news, I mean, the lies are just that much easier. People don't think for themselves. They don't analyze. They don't read.
No, they don't read. No.
All right. I mean, you know yourself. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here.
Right. Well, I'm right with you, man. I know they don't read. I mean, one of the reasons of my podcast, while I kind of veered off from doing videos or research, was just to try to put books before people, get authors and actual real stuff that has a basis in, a foundation in truth. Because some of this other stuff is just off the charts. Dave Icke, some of these people are talking about, multi-dimensional aliens and all kinds of crazy stuff. So, yeah, but it's really true. I think that you really have to change the minds of the masses to get anything, to veer anything either towards beneficial outcome or even, people who are malevolent always are concentrating on putting their ideas into the masses' minds.
And that's really why, as much as we have been, and here's one of my best lines, I think, if you've never heard it, but this is what I came up with, and that is Americans are propagandized into believing they can't be propagandized.
Right. No, that's so fitting. That should be put into some kind of granite rock and stuck in the center of D.C.
And as a result, I mean, it is the reason we don't want a democracy, which is mob rule. It's true.
Right.
And that is because if you, like you said, you can get the masses on your side, there'll be no uprisings. What makes me laugh is that we in that democracy, we talk about, well, we vote for the president. Well, you really don't. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about there, because honestly, we know electoral colleges and such, but our votes mean nothing. As George Carlin said, I mean, it's just, it makes us feel like we have the process when we don't. Right. And so that's it. I mean, it's.
Hey, you can just look at this Democratic primary. If they just rigged the whole thing, switch the votes at the end, then it's Joe Biden, creepy Joe, hyper corrupt Biden. Unbelievable. Without really much of an outroar from the rank and file Democrats. Like, I just left party politics 10 years ago. I'm an independent. But yeah, no, it was incredible.
God bless you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a tough road.
I have to laugh because that was a whiplash turnaround. And I mean, I hate to say it, but for quite some time, if not from the very beginning, although in cruder ways in earlier years, elections have been thrown and rigged all the time.
Right, so true.
They were done on a lower level, even back in the 18th century. I mean, it's never been a time of wonderful, elite, purebred people who just cared about government and such. That's all a bunch of crap.
Right, so true.
It's about power and money.
Yeah, and they've been killing people, secretly murdering people, suiciding people for hundreds of years, if not longer. Poisoning, strange, fortunate deaths, or people who were put into comas. I think that's been going on forever. Some of the assassins are just overt. I mean, you look at Kennedy, very overt, but yeah. I mean, you can just look at the last presidential election in 2016. Tons of people ended up dead, man. Tons of people, bodies showed up. If not just Seth Rich, I don't know if you followed that, but
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So I mean, it's kind of like coming to being woke is kind of like coming to cold. Like what did you say? You used to have a phrase too that was the cold, dispassionate search for truth. What was that one?
I tell you what, that's a perfect lead-in. We couldn't have done it better if we had worked together for years.
Okay.
What I was going to say to you, and this is in this particular work, and also the Uticans, Herb Smith and Andy Sr., use it as like an epigraph on their website. The reason I'm going to bring this up, and it's only going to take me about 40 seconds. This is The Way of the World in 40 seconds. It was a poem entitled Be Angry at the Sun by Robinson Jeffers in 1941. There's a background to that we can't get into right now, but he was a man that was saddened at the fact that two of his favorite countries, the United States and Japan, were going to go at it. And this is what he wrote. That public men publish falsehoods is nothing new. That America must accept, like the historical republics, corruption and empire has been known for years. Be angry at the sun for setting if these things anger you. Watch the wheel slope and turn. They are all bound on the wheel. These people, those warriors, this republic, Europe, Asia. Observe them gesticulating, observe them going down. The gang serves lies. The passionate man plays his part. The cold passion for truth hunts in no pack. You are not Catullus, to lampoon these crude sketches of Caesar. You are far from Dante's feet, but even farther from his dirty political hatreds. And this is the kicker. Let boys want pleasure and men struggle for power, and women perhaps for fame. And the servile to serve a leader, and the dupes to be duped. Yours is not theirs. Holy mackerel. So yes, that line about the cold passion for truth, hunts in no pack, that they have used and you remembered is from Robinson Jeffers' poem from 41.
Yeah, that's a great one. Thanks for reading that. Yeah, because that was another of your axioms you repeated. Sometimes it was a summation on one of your shows. I remember that. Like I've listened to so many of those shows. That was really you were the one who introduced me to Dave McGowan. So that's how, and that was I think a show from 2007. If what's been uploaded to your thing is all right. So like you've interviewed literally a legend, a guy who's still having an influence. People are still referencing his books, Program to Kill and Laurel Canyon, to this day.
I miss Dave McGowan quite a bit. For me, he was always available, which I think he was probably too available because I think it really ran him dry. But he was a glib spirit, and I used to kid him. I used to call him what's his, oh, geez, please don't let me get a brain fart now. I call him the Steve, what's his face, from Steve Miller. All right.
Steve Miller, right.
As Steve Miller was to music, with a kind of a joking spirit and stuff, I thought that Dave was.
Yeah, I would agree.
He had a blithe spirit. He had, and this is a talent that you're born with. He probably pissed off no one. He was just that kind of guy. And I mean, I could never be that. And I could never try to be that, but he did. And I miss his openness, and I miss his information. I just miss him like as a person. And I'll tell you what, I mean, there really isn't too much time that goes by that I don't think about him. In fact, I had done the last interview with him probably in 15 or so. And, it was kind of hard to get through all that because he was getting closer to the end.
Yeah.
But boy, I mean, there'll never be one like him. And I'm sorry to say that, but I just can't see it happening again.
Yeah, it's a shame because, he was right on so many of those subjects, whether it's the moon landing, which I didn't know much about, or, the politics of serial killing, or a subject that you dealt with often, which was the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. So he did a whole series on that as well. I mean, this broad conspiracy. Yeah, I mean, and he said 9/11 was an inside job, I think, on September 12th, 2001. So he saw I didn't see through that. I'm ashamed to say. But, yeah, he's going to be a unique one. And I think he had an egalitarian kind of, maybe a bias just towards, like, the cold, dispassionate search for truth. I think that was really his bias. And I think that's why he's so accessible to so many different people. Is really not really that politicized. I guess just kind of unraveling all the lies we've been told in our history books, I guess.
Oh, without a doubt. And we talked a lot about Lincoln and Booth, and that was the last kind of exchange of information that we had. And I think that was probably just before he knew he was as sick as he later found out he was. And that was good to be with him for that time. And he went on with as far as he could go. And then he and I last talked on a show hosted by another individual. And that was the end, really. So he just did a good job. And but the other thing also, too, is, I mean, he put all these things together about the way government reacts to us. And all I was trying to say beyond that, not that we did this at all, but my point was that it's been that way forever. It is that way now. America is no different. And we got to figure out as individuals how we're going to navigate this, because unfortunately, at least in my estimation, and I'll bet the keys to the camper on it, things are not going to get better. Government's in a position now where it feigns being our advocate, but really it's our adversary, and it's only as good to us. And I think that with all governments, they're only as good to the people as they have to be.
Right.
The main thing is to protect the power.
Yes. And
we're in these times now when we don't have statements. We have. I'm gonna say straight out. If you're in D.C., man, you're a whore. Otherwise you're not going to get reelected after one term. You either play ball and take the money and run, or you just get ostracized and you just don't get reelected. I mean, to me, they're an absolute disgrace. In fact, they give prostitutes a bad name.
It's true, very true, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we have a process that looks like it's something, and what makes me laugh, does anybody in America ever ask, after watching, at least with the presidential elections, right, this quadrennial bullcrap session where they promise things that never happen, and then the next 4 years they come out and promise the same things. I can almost sit here and lip sync above or beyond what they're saying on TV. It's like, okay, when are they going to get to the affordable health? Yeah, the affordable health care. We're going to get this right. And it never, ever changes. We are absolutely left hanging in the wind with a country that's crumbling from the inside and being cut by 1,000 slices deliberately. And everybody's just whooping it up about Republicans and Democrats. And it's like, folks, you don't know, that's a puppet show.
Yeah, no, it's bad. Yeah, I mean, you and I did a show on DC. That was kind of a show where I kind of just offloaded all of my, stories about being there. And I think we talked about Patrick Knowlton, right? And Vince Foster, death, all that stuff. It was interesting to see that all pop back up during Kavanaugh, too, who, co-wrote the Starr Report. So, yeah, the past is still present in a lot of ways. I think that's one of the reasons why the Democratic Party went after Kavanaugh so bad, is that they knew he recorded all of the footnotes about Bill Clinton and all the grotesque women that he was with and sexual acts and all that stuff. But never talked about in the mass media, that's for sure.
Yeah, but we carry on this this double think where we believe in things we know are false, and everybody just seems to be okay with it, as if they didn't believe in that, they would drift off into space and never come back again. Like they need something to moor themselves, and it's like, is this it? I mean, are you kidding me?
No, it's really a joke. Like, look at these primaries and all these debates. They're just fake. It's just like, why are people tolerating this? Why are they even commenting on the puppet show? It's really something else. You're right. You're absolutely right. For people who don't know, you have a DC experience as well. You were, at least for a little bit, FBI bound, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's another thing I got attacked for, being the FBI.
Right. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you how romantic this was. I was in the basement of the Hoover building below some labs that God knows what they were doing, because the stench that came through our office was just absolutely horrible. So I was processing gas and oil expenditures by all the field agents in the United States while I was waiting for my 3 years so I could go to Quantico, which is baloney. They just did that with a lot of people. It's the old story. I mean, you come down, you're supposed to go, check off all the boxes. But in the end, they use the old psychological profile to either cast you out or bring you in. And I knew that after 3 years, someone like me was not going to pass the psychological profile.
Right. Well, it's funny you should say that, because all these other FBI guys are, all in the news today. And those are the people who went down that other path that you didn't go through. So Stroke and Comey and all these other people, somehow, I don't know if as much of Comey was an FBI, but some of these other characters, you can tell that they're just natural-born bureaucrats. They just say whatever they're supposed to say, sit in the chair, keep it warm, do what they're told. I mean, do you ever get that feeling if you watch this whole, Mueller fiasco?
I mean, it is a mess. I mean, the agents in the field and stuff like that, I mean, a lot of them are detached from it, and happily so. And I have to tell you that when I went down to the Bureau in June of '76, I made two friends who I stayed friends with, to this very day. I mean, lately we just have fallen out of touch, and they were good guys. They really were, and I'm glad that they were in the Bureau, because they were very sensible people, and I was happy about that. And I'm sure there's a lot of agents that are like that. But, this is another place. I guess what I'm saying is, one of the last questions I asked my friend Dennis, we were together down in Florida, and I said to him, and I probably shouldn't have, but I said, man, I never realized how many black ops the FBI is behind. And he looked at me, now retired, and he said, oh, yeah. But he didn't say anything further. I just let it go at that.
Wow.
I mean, and that's the point. You see things up front. You see people who are in any agency or whatever that are kind of like what everyone else is like. But it's what's going on behind the screen that you got to worry about. All the black ops that go on that nobody knows about, that never happened. You know what I mean?
Right. That never come to the public eye. They just don't even know they're going on. Absolutely. That's really terrifying, is you don't know what some of these other guys with Stroke has been up to in counter intel. All this other stuff it's all behind the curtain.
In the 60s, before and of course after Kennedy's assassination, I often wondered how much was pulled off during that time, because that's a time when Americans were pretty much asleep. And I'm not saying that derogatorily. I mean, my father caught both wars. He caught World War II and Korea. I mean, in the 60s, he wanted to just raise his kids, have a home, blah, blah, blah. And I can't blame him or anyone else like that. It was a time when people had enough of all that. However, in back of that time, a lot of stuff got done that's socially engineered where we are today. And when I see some of the ops that were pulled off, to include the assassination, I'm like, man, how in the world do we ever let that go by? But we believed in the government. We wanted to believe that there will be no more problems. And they took it upon themselves, whoever they are, to go ahead and engineer the world that we have today, which I have to admit is not looking too good for the peasants.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the '60s were very tumultuous, and so many Kennedys and MLK and Malcolm X, all these people. You kind of go back. There's a lot of FBI involvement there, or CIA as well.
Well, I mean, as a kid, I mean, I'm sitting there going, I think the last assassination was Bobby's. And I mean, what am I? I'm a junior in high school, and I'm like, what? I mean, I saw one, close up and personal with the shooting of Lee Harvey Oswald and back of the assassination. I mean, I know of that, MLK, and then Robert Kennedy, and it's like, is this like the way things are? I mean, is this part of like the whole American landscape thing that nobody told me about? I mean, in a way, I should have asked more, but I shut down. But then in the 70s, it got really strange. And of course, culminated with Kent State. And I think that just broke the spirit of protest in the United States forever. I cannot believe what happened that day. I was going to my college baseball game, and I was told the game is canceled. I'm going, why? Well, they went Kent State. I'm going, what? What are the hippies doing now? That's where my head was at, right? I go home and I start to watch this on TV. I'm going, my God, is this like Moscow? Holy mackerel, what are these troops doing? Et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that a lot of stuff went on that really pressed Americans' tolerance for believing that we were still something different than everyone else, that it was all true about Washington and it wasn't. But
yeah, right. No, yeah, it was incredible era.
No, I mean, a lot went down. There's no two ways about it. Now I look back at it. I mean, I was like 13 and 11 and during all that stuff. And I just realized what all got pushed through. And I can't blame our parents or your parents or anyone else's for not being astute about this. They go to the polls thinking they're going to vote people to caretake our society. And you realize that they didn't do that. I mean, they didn't, caretake the society. And here we are today. I mean, a lot of us know what's going on, but we have no voice, really.
It's just kind of an underground voice, almost like we are in a communist state or something in the Soviet Union, where you just have these underground podcasts and other people, but nobody really in an authoritative position in the media is really willing to stick their neck out on any past subjects, or else they're gone. They get canceled.
I think we've entered an era where the idea of government is going to probably just pass away. I mean, right now, we don't know how much we're getting sold out, and everybody else everywhere around this world are. I mean, we're headed for a third world war. There's no two ways about it. And after that, there'll be no more nations. A la, John Lennon's Imagine. And we're in the throes of this right now. We just don't realize that where we're going is going to be far worse than what we've been in. And that when you look at world government, you're really working at centuries-long plan for world government run by elites who really don't give a crap about you. You're only here for as much use as you have to us, and we really don't want you around after the fact.
Right, good point. I mean, how do you see World War III playing out? What do you predict in the future? Do you have any ideas on that?
It's not my own ideas, but I will tell you this. There's one thing that I really cleave to. I read Zbigniew Brzezinski's The Grand Chessboard, which came out, I guess, around 1994. And he stated in the book, and this just caught me, because in 94, I mean, we really had no beef with much of the Mideast. I mean, we went through the Iraq thing. Yeah, I got that. But that's about it. And so what it said was, or what Brzezinski wrote was, the United States would be unwise to agitate an axis of Iran, China, and Russia. And I said, huh? That's interesting. And I never forgot it. And I think he stated it a second time in the book. And then I realized, as as I had just started to get into this whole thing about conspiracy and have the radio show, that the elites sometimes give you fair warning, shall I say, in quotations. They'll give you a wink and a nod if you're paying attention to what's going to happen. And I always cleave to that. And I said, that's what I think is going to happen. It's going to go back to the Mideast. And even though we had no beef with Iran, it was been years after the hostage thing, blah, 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 that Brzezinski would write that then as an insider. I think he was telling us this is what you can expect. And that's what I'm saying to you. Screw North Korea. I mean, every time Elvis comes out, North Korea, and like lobs a couple of duds into the ocean, everybody gets all up in arms. But it's Iran. Not that Iran is bad in itself, but it's going to be used as a trigger to start a war that we are going to engage on the Eurasian continent, and we are not going to win this one. I would also,
Interesting. I mean,
by the way, if you do a search on the Grand Chessboard PDF, you can download the whole book from the CIA's website.
Really? Wow. What about, did you read Between Two Worlds or whatever the other one was? What was the title? That
was also his, the Technotronic Age.
Yes, right. So both of those are kind of occult in nature. I was astonished that he kept with that theme for his books, because the chessboard is like, the power of the mind. It symbolizes, and it's in a lot of creepy occult movies. And then you've got the past world and the new world order in the second book. So, and he was a David Rockefeller CFR kind of henchman. Yeah, he was a henchman, really.
The Grand Chessboard also refers to something that came out of London in the first decade of the 20th century, around 1904 to 9, I can't remember. Sir Halford Mackinder was the first geopolitician, and he instructed us to look at the world differently than we do now. And he said, in time, it will all be about the Eurasian continent, from Lisbon to Vladivostok. And he said, whatever power can win over Eurasia will rule the world. And the pivot point in that Eurasian continent is what Mackinder called it, the pivot point. Brzezinski used Mackinder's scheme and called it the Grand Chessboard too. So where you see Americans now, we're never getting out of there. Forget about it. It's not going to happen. It's going to be a showdown there, and we're going to be the odd man out, because this is one time when we're going across oceans to try to fight or defend something. We're not the ones that have to sit back in the United States and use our oceans as barriers. We're going to go there, and we're not going to fare well against China and Russia, who will join to get rid of the interloper.
And are you saying that the kind of central axis point is somewhere in the Middle East or Iraq? Is that what you're saying? Or is that what?
Yeah, just above that. And of course, you and any of your listeners just want to put in pivot point, a world island, Halford Mackinder. You'll see the Mercator maps that have been produced in back of what he posited back then. There were a lot of things that came out of London at that time that I find very interesting. It's as if the social engineering for the next century or two came out of there, because at the same time there was a book by let's see. I mean, we can always put up the links, I guess,
okay,
if you reference this, but it was a Anglican priest, I believe, that turned Catholic. I'm sorry. I'll figure it out. But anyway, he wrote a book called Lord of the World. And now get this, it was written before World War I, and it predicted a war where the Asian Empire would move west against Europe, with the United States as the only force to get between Europe's destruction and this Asian invasion. That's pretty wild to predict.
Is it Robert Hugh Benson? Robert Hugh Benson?
You're beautiful. How'd you do that?
I just looked it up on the internet. 1907.
Okay, yeah, it's yes. Robert Hugh Benson, that work came out. Mackinder's work came out at that same time. And then also later on, I mean, you've got George Orwell, a.k.a. Eric Blair, who also was involved in that and gave us 1984, which, it was taught in English class in my day. And it shouldn't have been. It should have been in poli-sci.
Right.
But they treated it as a parody, as an analogy, as a ho-ho. But I'm telling you right now, those people in and around London at that time knew what was going to happen. It was already in the works. And and even what Huxley wrote too, with Brave New World, those characters knew what was coming, and it did not spell a good existence for the rest of us,
Right.
Time in memoriam.
Right. And I mean, wasn't Wells, these guys are all influenced by H.G. Wells, so you've got this whole kind of future world coming on. But this Benson was pretty grim. His conclusions were pretty grim, weren't they?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you read it all. If you
No.
just picked it up, if you just cherry picked it off the internet, I mean, good deal. But if you read it yourself, yeah, you'll find that. I mean, it all points to the same things. I mean, with Benson, he talked about 3 spheres of influence, of course, and that predated even Orwell's, 3 spheres also,
Right.
Oceanics and all that stuff.
Right.
And I just wondered how in the world they knew that. And I don't think it was just by being lucky, or guessing correctly. And H.G. Wells, by the way, again, like in 1904 or so, they held this forum on population control. It's on a website called galton.org, Galton. And in it, I mean, H.G. Wells, who doesn't seem to be that great a guy, turns around and says, screw the selective breeding, to try to population control. He says the way of the world has always be to kill the hindmost, which means the feeble.
Yeah.
That's where Wells's head was at.
Well, Blair and Wells were friends, so he read all of Wells's stuff and was always criticizing and writing stuff. So these guys all knew Wells very well, is my understanding.
So you have to think. I mean, see, to me, Europe has always been the center of this universe. Americans think that we're all that because we kicked a lot of ass and we fought a lot of wars and we're really strong. And yeah, okay. But you know what? In the end, to me, and I could provide proof of this, that the United States relationship to the UK has been like that of in the Mad Max movies.
Right. Max the Thunderdome or whatever.
Yeah, Master Blaster. You remember that?
Yep. Uh-huh.
Okay, Master is UK. Blaster is us. You catch my drift?
Absolutely.
So the thing is that even though we could do everything, we are under the control, frankly, of the Brits. It's never, ever changed. This place is a rental. And what I'm saying is that within a short time, and that may be 50 years, I don't know, our day is over. The era of the United States is finished. We did what we were supposed to do, and it was at the behest of the powers in Europe.
Right, the new Atlantis.
Well, there was a book called The Manisis Chronicles, and that's like Manisis. It was a publication out of the Rosicrucian Society out of, I believe it's Quarriesville, Pennsylvania. And it was written by a Brewington, which is obviously a pseudonym. But it laid out something that really curled the hairs on the back of my neck about what was going to happen to us. And he portrayed that the United States would be invaded by the old world. And that the only thing that would stop the invasion, which would bring other nations' armies in here, would be a tremendous geological global cataclysm, which would be so destructive that it would withdraw the armies because everybody had to go back to their native lands to see if they had them at all. That kind of thing. Highlands were laid low, lowlands, became high.
Right.
But the fact of that always struck me because that is a very plausible. And here's the thing. They said it was at a time where our armies were not at home, which if you think about it now, it's always that way. Think about how many of our troops are being deployed elsewhere and how much do we really have at home if the doo-doo hit the oscillator,
Right. No question. How many bases do we have around the world? 200? I don't even know. It's a huge.
And you have to wonder, really, going into Afghanistan in October of 2001, what is the mission? Does the mission change? I mean, we've been there now almost 20 years. It ain't about, It ain't fighting there so we'll be safe here. They're getting ready for this last one that's going to take place just where the Bible says it will.
Right. I mean, it's crazy to think that everything could just play out just like Armageddon, right? Everything just moves into the Middle East as the center of everything.
Well, I had written to you and I said when I did the podcasting in the beginning, when we were doing pirate radio, it was secret societies. That always gets everybody interested. And it is pretty interesting. But that's not the end of the matter. And then I got into a middle ground there where I was trying to interview patriots and, and look for the answer there. And they're no better than the regular public because they all, you hear all these people go, we have to get back to the Constitution.
Right.
Well, when was the Constitution ours? Oh, we have to get back to good government. Well, when was good government really ours? So they're all looking for the same thing that they're never going to find. In this last stage, with most of the stuff on Radio for All, it isn't really pleasing to people, and I understand it. And it's not the kind of thing that, can keep me advertisers and make me money and all that other stuff, but it is, in fact, the truth. I'm not saying anybody has to pat me on the back, but I did this, what I thought is probably is a public service, and also to answer my question, what is the way of the world? And what I'm seeing now and what I put up on Radio for All is that, we're going to fall. It's the same as it's always been. And then, of course, we get into the end times and Revelation, which I believe in, and that it's not going to, it's not going to go well for us until, well, frankly, Christ returns. And, of course, that'll probably get you no listeners at all. But
No, they just left. I think the standard listener, actually, of my podcast, they go about 18 minutes and then drop off. They have kind of the attention span of a fruit fly. They just play off. So there's nobody who've even heard this right now. So it's probably 3 people.
Well, in the beginning, I wanted to know the way things really were, and I will tell you that I found out. I'm not being conceited about this because, I've gone through everything. Believe me, nobody asked me to do this. I'm not complaining. But I went through stuff that I thought, it was really a long, arduous thing. And in the end, it isn't a really pleasant outcome. And here's the problem. Americans especially have been inured to this happy ending, Hollywood ending thing.
Yes.
And you know what? Sometimes the cavalry doesn't come in time. Sorry to say. This is where I get churchy, but I'm not a churchgoer. I just believe in the Bible. And it's headed that way. As I wrote to you in an email, to me, the New World Order is just Satan's takeover, and we're getting closer to that time.
Right.
It's
I
still
totally
maybe
agree
100
with you.
years off. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you on that. It's interesting that you've done all that study. You've done hours and hours of study, and you've just come back to sit right there at the Scripture. You're sitting there right at the end of Scripture in Revelation. This is where it all makes sense. So then you kind of verified this kind of prophetic view that it's ominous, and that the way the world ends is not with it's with a bang and a whimper, right? Or it's unfortunate. It's interesting that you bring that up, you have this kind of ominous outlook at the end. But I talk to people out here in LA, and they just don't want to talk about anything with a hint of shade or darkness. They literally just want to watch Hallmark movies and things with happy endings. They just don't want to accept anything else that could be grim. And that probably explains a lot of why we have the current political leaders that we have, is they just can't accept certain things about that. They just like the surface, red, white, and blue disguise.
Believe me when I tell you that I'm no different than anyone else. I want the news to be good. I want there to be a happy ending. But throughout my lifetime, and part of it's because, when I was a kid in the 50s, and, the World War II vets were back and kind of still not over it, and the Korean vets just came back. My father would go and play softball with the guys, and I was 6 or 7, and I had to tag along. And then he would bring me back to the bar where the guys all had drinks, and they gave me enough money to buy Cokes and play shuffleboard. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I heard stuff. And you know how as kids we really listen to what adults say, but when we become adults, we think that the kids aren't listening. You know what I mean?
Right.
So and I heard stuff, and I'm like, all right. And I just shelved it, put it back in the library in my brain somewhere, and said, okay. But that stayed with me. And throughout time, there were enough things to keep that alive, that things are not the way we were told. And I didn't want to believe that about the United States. And we continued and continued. And I don't know if you remember, I did a series with a gentleman who called himself the Informer.
Right.
He and another gentleman, James Montgomery, were great researchers, and they pulled apart even the United States, and they gave the reason. I mean, they gave the documentation, and in the end, that's kind of where I kind of stopped, because I realized then, yeah, okay, there isn't really any hope in governments and in the flesh. And I mean, that's just the way it is. If I wasn't Christian, I wouldn't care anyway. If I don't even know what that word means anymore, but I do believe in the Bible. And I realized that, that's kind of it. And I don't wish that upon anybody. And I kind of wish I didn't go the way I did. But I did, and I realized that that's the truth. And you might say, well, it's my truth. Well, I'm like, well, no, I think pretty much it is the way. But that's how it goes. But you know what? In the end, you can understand why I could never go on any more stations or any of these other like internet. People don't want to hear that. That ain't going to make money.
Yeah.
So
well, that's funny because you used to write the Patriot movement, P-A-Y.
Yeah, Patriot.
Patriot, right? Which I mean, it's a good cash cow. I got to tell you. You placed yourself somewhere over there where you're, talking about reforming the government to keep America great again. Those guys are in the money.
Yeah, and that's what people want. And that's why, too, because I always said that money changes everything. And with people that are out there now, with iHeart coming out with all these podcasts, all these characters want to do is make money. All you're doing is like tripling or quadrupling all the noise that's out there anyway on radio. I mean, I still like listening and tuning in an AM radio from somewhere in Kansas. So, I mean, we're a station somewhere in Kansas. But that's the way it's gone. It's all being monetized. But don't look for the truth when it comes to money, because the truth always comes out second.
Well, I would agree with that. All of your Informer series are on the internet. So if you go to the YouTube and just type in the Informer, Vyzygoth or Matrix Cutter, it'll pop up. So there's so much of your material in varied places on YouTube. So people have really tried to archive a lot of your stuff. Collins Brothers, Barbara Hartwell, The Informer, Founding Father Fairy Tale. So much of the stuff is still here.
Yeah, I had a pretty good run. But when I started out, I never meant for it to last forever, because if you had a message to bring, you bring it. And then I think it's done. If I stayed around longer, it would be for other reasons, like making money and, running a variety show and stuff. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that's not what I wanted to do. In that middle period, as I referred to, I kind of lost my way and started getting into other things and having, great guests on and all this other stuff. But it wasn't bringing me any closer to where I was, and I was attracting a lot of people who I did not want to be attracted by. So, I mean, I just, brought it all down. In fact, I burned everything down and came back up. And you were involved in that last manifestation. And that's it. I mean, that was pretty much all there was.
You had a long run. I mean, 15 years, something like that, at least. But started 2002. Yeah, so... But those are some good hours. I mean, they're like you said. There's no, they're really good long form interviews. There's no ads. There's no break for ads. There's no scare tactics. There's no 3-headed frogs in the water. You got to buy a Berkey. People. That's the funny thing about Jones is people never key in that he's hard selling his items. Hey, the water is pure now, Berkey, and then he just hit you with a Berkey ad. Nobody seems to really get the bait. They don't see the bait in the sell anyway. Vyzygoth, we are at 50 minutes. I think that the hour has gone very fast. I think we should definitely do another show. But is there anything else to kind of bookend this little discussion that you would like to end with?
We kind of hit the high points, generally speaking. I would like to get back into some of the things that occurred during that time. I mean, I was just looking for where we're going to go, and I found it. But there were interesting things that happened along the way that revealed the nature of, let's put it this way, medicine and government that I think are really key. Because now at this stage of my life, you know what? Such a sad thing is that the two things I always feared the most was going to prison and to a hospital, and that's really sad in the United States.
Yeah, no kidding. Hospital can be the most dangerous place to go.
Man, I tell you, with this coronavirus too, I don't think any of us think that it's really all that organic, although it is. But what mileage the governments can get out of this, that'll be interesting to see.
Yes.
How She really was all about, wellness.
Yeah, I mean, we could end up with cashless society at the other end, guys. Cash has got Corona. We got to everybody get a card, get a chip. Anyway, so it's Vyzygoth again. You have just so many hours are available online at radioforall.net. You got to type in Alembic into the search bar, and there's 100 hours there. There's also hundreds of hours on YouTube under Vyzygoth, and there's probably more under Alembic, which I didn't search for. But you're not really even on any social media anymore, are you?
You mean like Facebook and stuff?
Facebook, yeah. I guess it's just your email, huh?
Yeah, no, I won't know any part of that. I mean, it's to me, I at this stage of my life, I do like the privacy. I kind of think social media, if you need it for like business and stuff, fine. But to me, it's just we've returned to being 5-year-olds. Like me? Are you serious? Like me? No, screw you. All right. Anyway.
All right, man. Thanks so much. Vyzygoth, really one of the greats, man. Still got good information, tons of old material, that long form factual material. Greg McGowan, so many other people that are definitely worth listening to. So thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, William. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, likewise. It's been great. All right.